it's Katie's back with another video. I have not been posting videos for the past couple of days because I actually got sunburnt. Yes, I got sunburnt. I do be sun gazing, I do be lying out in the sun. Aloe vera is the key. If you have a sunburn, just slather it all over your face or your body and it heals it a lot faster, so get you some aloe vera. Today's topic is going to be on the ego and why our ego basically blocks us from achieving better things or our blessings. If you think about it, ego is like pride. It is what you associate yourself with, so it's your personality, how you associate with yourself. But I'm gonna break this down, okay? So I learned in my psychology class that ego can be split up in terms of your personality, but that is split into 3 categories. So you have on top you have the super ego. So your super ego, I want you to think about it in terms of like angels and devils. So your super ego is basically the angel side in you. It's your higher conscience, your morality, your want to do good self. The id is basically your deepest, darkest secrets. It's your wants for pleasure. It's basically your wants, your hidden, like what you want, but you don't want to say it. It's like, let's say your devilish side. And everybody has this, okay? I don't think anyone is like one or the other. Your id is basically your devilish side, and then your super ego is your angelic side. So obviously, but if you take those two, you need to have something to mediate them, which is your ego. So your ego is your personality. That's how you associate yourself, and it takes parts of your super ego and your id, and it kind of just like puts them together and decides like, should I do this? Should I do that? Like, this is me. This is who I am. It's basically just like your personality. All right, so I forgot to explain this a little more because you're probably thinking, what is an id? What is a super ego? If I can break it down into simpler terms, it's basically your conscious and unconscious parts of your mind. So in our mind, we have both unconscious and conscious parts, and the unconscious side takes up a huge part of what goes on in our brain, but our conscious side only takes a small part. So the conscious side is like what I'm doing right now, talking to you, thinking, breathing, but my unconscious side has a bunch of like things that I can't think about right now, but they usually come out at later times or when I'm, sleeping, dreaming. Another way I can describe the ego is basically your self-esteem, your self-image, how you see yourself. And this is why it really becomes important to a lot of people, because nowadays everyone's focused on how they see themselves. In fact, everyone's so focused on how they see themselves and how they appear to others that they don't really they're caring less and less about their health, their well-being, because they care so much about how they portray themselves to others. Shove this all in your face. You see like all of these bigger YouTubers, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of these like bigger YouTubers, influencers, and creators tend to have this big ego, and we see that these influencers, creators, YouTubers, whatever you want to call them, with big egos usually flash stuff in your face. They'll like flash their money, they'll flash their designer clothes, designer shoes, their fancy cars and mansions, their $1 million mansions. They're just saying like, oh, if you do what I do and do this, then you can become like this too. But what the problem with that is they're sort of selling you this like lifestyle, this luxurious, rich lifestyle that, not everyone needs. In fact, a lot of us don't need that lifestyle. I wanted what I didn't have, but see, when I did get something that was a little more, bougie, once I finally got it, I was like, I didn't feel any more satisfied. I didn't feel any more happy. I had it and I was like, okay, now what? Like, when we confront our ego, which a lot of people do not like doing, okay? No one likes to confront their ego. In fact, I've met very, 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 very few people that have actually confronted their ego, kind of sat down with it and was like, okay, we need a change here. I need to stop acting the way I'm doing because it's hurting myself and it's hurting others. But see, people don't want to do that. They're too afraid of what will happen when they sit down and confront their ego. They're scared because they don't know who they are without their ego. And that's the problem, you know? Our ego looks outside of ourselves for self-worth, for self-importance. It looks outside. It looks for materialistic objects. It looks for, you know, the way people view them. Our soul, however, our soul looks inside. Our soul has everything it needs. Everything, all of the riches, the money, the love, and everything you desire is inside of you. It's always been inside of you. And when your ego tells you that you need to get this and you need to get that to be happy, you're not using, you know, that power inside of you that comes from your soul. Our ego is basically ourselves. It's how we identify ourselves. But if you've ever had an ego death, which can be, you know, an ego death can happen in a lot of ways. You don't necessarily have to take you don't have to take it if you don't want to. But if you do, that is one of the many ways, you know, you can have an ego death. If you guys watched my last video about my spiritual journey, you know I talked about my ego death and how it basically propelled me into starting my spiritual journey. My ego didn't want to let go of that self that I had created in my head. That girl that wants all these luxury items, that wants to live a rich lifestyle, a lavish lifestyle, whatever that means. If you think about it, living a rich or lavish lifestyle can be anything you define it as. Because if you see people living in impoverished states, like you see they're very poor, they cannot afford basic living necessities. So clean water, like housing, you know, they have to wear the same clothes every single day. Or, you know, they have to eat food that's been expired for days. Like, these people cannot afford basic living necessities. And then you think about, like, me, for example, I live a very, very good life. I have everything I need for basic living. And then on top of that, I have extra stuff that I don't need. You know what I mean? I used to just keep accumulating and accumulating stuff that I don't need. When change comes in your life, a lot of the time we think, is this going to benefit me or not? You know, and that's thinking from your ego. You know what I mean? We think like, oh, like, is it going to benefit me? If it's not, then why should I do it, right? But a lot of the time we're just chilling in our comfort zones, that we don't really open ourselves up to new possibilities and new ideas. And there will always be new things going on in our life. There will always be change, and you have to accept it. You have to accept change. It's going to happen whether you like it or not. This world's going to look very different in a year from how it does now. Hell, it's going to look very different in a few months, because it's almost 2021 and the world's going to be looking a lot different. And you got to understand that it's okay. Change is good. We like change, okay? You don't want things to stay the same. You want change. So basically, practice gratitude, okay? Instead of thinking, I need this, I need that, like I need to go get this car or this pair of sneakers or this pair of designer clothes or whatever it is that you think you need. For one, you probably don't need it. In fact, you don't need it. You never needed it in the first place. When you just portray this like image that, you know, you have a lot of money, you have this, that, and you have a good job, you're always, you know, flexing, I have a good job, I have good grades, I have this, I have that. When you're always like telling people about the things you have, you're actually, you know, repelling them from you. People will either always be jealous of you, or they're going to plot ways to get to you. They're going to try, they're going to think, how do I ruin this person so that I can be the one on top, so that they can fall and I can take their spot, you know what I mean? A lot of people are kind of shady, kind of like snake-like in that way. Your ego is the me, I I am me. Me am I? Yeah, your ego is the me and your soul is the we. Does that make sense? Ego is me and soul is we. So the we is just understanding that we're all, we're all connected in some way or another. We're all part of this whole that is bigger than ourselves. It's very tempting to want all this stuff, to want to look a certain way, but your true self, your soul that is really like the true you, doesn't care about any of that stuff. It doesn't. And if you ever, have an ego death, you would understand, like, you are not who you think you are. In fact, you are completely different than you think you are. You are way deeper, much more inclined to accept love, to give love, to be a way happier person, okay? So yeah, I'm sending you guys lots of positivity, love, light. I hope you guys liked today's video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more content.